I'm getting ready to record. Well, that came suddenly. Okay, welcome to the latest edition of First State Kopites podcast. This is episode 5 of season 3. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and the friends of Liverpool supporters in Delaware. Thanks so much for joining us on whatever your preferred platform is. So it's August 22nd. It's a day after Liverpool won their second game of the season. They beat a challenging, let's say, Burnley side. We'll talk more about that as we go along. We're doing this very much last minute. Thanks so much, Daz, Sean, for joining us. Sean returns from his investigations in South Carolina as to what players Liverpool are going to buy. So we may touch on that too. We're going to review the game against Burnley yesterday. We're going to look at the league in general. We may touch on refereeing once or twice, which I don't know about you, but I'm a bit confused about. And then we'll look a little further ahead at Chelsea being up next. I'll go to you, Sean, first with the review of the Burnley game. But I have to express my slight confusion about why Liverpool are second in the league when they're dead level with Chelsea. I don't really understand why you can't be clever enough now with the computing power that we have at our disposal to do dead heats. Anyway, we'll get onto that. Sean, Burnley, always a tough test to play against a Sean Dyche team, especially one so intent on being antagonistic at every play. What was your takeaway? What was your main takeaway from yesterday's game?
I thought we dominated the game. I thought we controlled most of it. And it's weird. I don't think that we played as well as it looks like we can play. Like it looks like we have a couple more gears to go up. But at the same time, we clearly looked much better than we did almost all year last year. And we're kind of back to just, I think it's Matip and Van Dijk being back. It's just we look like we have control of the match and we're not giving up chances. The players seem confident that we're not going to give up chances. And we totally switched up the midfield, and it didn't really have that much effect overall. I thought in the first half we were a little more shaky in terms of totally controlling the match and controlling midfield, which shouldn't be all that surprising given that it was Harvey Elliott's first start in the midfield in Premier League, and Henderson's back after not starting a match for 6 months. So I saw some people complaining online about us, we don't look all together. Well, how would you expect to look all together when you have someone, 18-year-old starting his first match in midfield and another player who hasn't played in 6 months or started in 6 months? So I saw some other people criticizing Naby. I thought Naby played great again, personally. I mean, I think he's playing in some ways that a similar role to what Jenny was doing for us. I think you kind of mentioned that last week, Daz. I guess the biggest takeaway for me was I feel like Mane looks just back. He looks to me like the 2017 through 2020 Mane again, and it's almost like 2020 and 2021 last season, like it never happened. He doesn't look off the pace like he did a lot of the year last year. And I think I shared with a lot of people, you guys, and on our Facebook on LC Delaware and all that. I was overly excited with the goal because it looked like your classic Mane goal. He just smashed it. And sometimes he doesn't hit the goal when he does that. But last season it was just, he just wasn't in sync. And, he hit that stride like you're used to seeing. And it was a beautiful goal. And Harvey Elliott's part of that goal should not be overlooked, to control the ball like he did. Van Dijk, every part of that goal was world class. I mean, the Van Dijk pass, Elliott controlling it, Trent's pass kind of around the defender was perfect, and then Mane just one touch smashed it in. And I felt like the match was over at that point. I had to leave anyway, so I missed the last 15 minutes of the match. But I felt confident that the match was basically over at that point. We had it totally in control, and yeah. So I saw some people kind of and you can't go overboard because people act stupid on social media and stuff, but I saw some people complaining about various things like Nabi and we don't look right and linking up, and it's the second match of the year, and for the most part we totally dominated the game. I did do a little bit of XG analysis here, not to go too far, but so I looked through for our first two games. So we gave up a couple of chances in both games late in the match after it was already put away, right? Mm-hmm. But through the first two games, we've given up a total of 0.66 XG through 84 minutes. And in that time, through 84 minutes, we have 4.28. So that's I think over the two matches, that's about as comprehensive as you're going to get. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm interested to see how we match up against Chelsea next week. Again, it's the third match of the season, so it's not necessarily going to tell you everything you need to know for the whole season, but it'll be a good test, and it'll be interesting.
Oh, so much in there. I noticed actually that most of the commentary I saw was like an example was they said, well, Mane didn't have many days off last year between seasons, and that's to explain. And they didn't talk about crowds, didn't talk about COVID, which he had. It feels like there are so many things that are now not in play with this team. Not to mention the fact that that's the first time that midfield in particular has kind of shown up for a game. And I think, if you look at the 2 seasons where we got 90 plus points, we didn't start off like we were playing our very best football at the beginning. We grew into the season, and I feel like that's kind of what Klopp and company are trying to do with this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the COVID thing is overlooked by a lot of people, and it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, we know that a lot of people get long COVID, and I don't know. To me, I don't have any medical evidence of this, but just watching them play,
yeah,
it looked to me like both Trent and Mane maybe had long COVID last year because they weren't right for a long part of the season. The club hasn't released anything. I mean, it's just all suspicion, but I don't know. I mean, based on how they've returned to form, it's like they're back to normal now, and it was just a blip last year. So, and they both had COVID. So, not every team in the league had half their team get COVID like we did. It's not something that we should be overlooking. So it's just like, to me, last season was just such an outlier. I think in history you're going to look back and say, what a weird season that was.
Yeah.
This season might also be weird, but at least we're starting with fans in the stands, and people are vaccinated, and so it's a little bit better. So I think that part of it and other parts of it are being overlooked. But
yeah. So going to ask Daz the same question, but I did see someone commenting on was the guy in the number 14 shirt for Arsenal today really Aubameyang, or was he somebody who just looked like him? Because but he's had COVID, right? Just recently. Makes you wonder, right? It could be that Aubameyang's had a doppelganger playing today. It could be that Aubameyang is not the player he once was, but it could also be he had COVID and maybe he's still struggling with whatever the effects of that are. Daz,
I think that Sean pretty much hit all the high points. There's just to focus on the positives. Like, we haven't played our quote unquote first choice midfield trio yet. Mm-hmm. It's been two different ones over the course. First off, like sending condolences to Fabinho's family about his dad, but also sending congratulations to Ox and Perry. I just love that couple, like with the way that they kicked off the pandemic with the dancing and just like the happiness that they seem to put out. I just love that couple. But so there's some stuff to be thankful for and some stuff to be sad about too. But to that point, like we had a new look midfield again. and Henderson has been gone for ages, and he grew from strength to strength. And I was really impressed with Harvey Elliott, because I know that oftentimes you're like, oh, he's an 18-year-old kid. You got to give him some time, give him some space. He's going to make mistakes. He lost his way a little bit in probably the middle portion in the second half. And to his credit, he pulled it all back together, and he was storming at the end. That the ball that he put through for Salah was so cultured. It was inch perfect for him just to be able to run on and hit with the inside of his left boot and put it into that corner. Then, like you said, the control that he had when that ball was played over the top. And I think someone else, one of the Anfield rap guys, said it, more often than not, someone's just going to nod that inside. They're not going to try and bring it down and put a ball through. It was sumptuous. And
yeah,
actually, I think that he looked a little shaky when Thiago came on. Like, he gave up 2 opportunities in the last 5 or 7 minutes there. He got caught on the ball, and then he tried to pass a ball and it ended up going nowhere. And one of their guys latched onto it. It's like we had 2 new look midfields, and I think both of them have acquitted themselves really well. So the thing about Naby was, and I have someone in a different group. Yeah, I know. I have other groups that I sometimes chat with. Sorry about that.
Needs to stop.
Bastard. One other thing about Harvey Elliott, one thing I did love was, like, every bastard was lining up to kick him in a white jersey. Like, it seemed that they took turns, and every time the wee bugger just got up, dusted himself down, and said, "Not today," and got on with it. But as for Naby's, did you clock when Naby came off the size of the hug that Klopp gave him?
Yes, that was going to mention that.
So that's not something like he reserves those hugs for someone that is doing exactly what he's asked them to do, almost to the letter.
Yep.
So again, Naby's reinvented his game for us, because that's not the type of game that he wants to play. He wants to be up knocking balls into spaces. He doesn't want to be hoovering stuff up for people.
Yep.
So I thought the assessment of what he was doing was very, very unfair. Look, I'm a Naby file too. I know there's a lot of Naby phobes. I don't think there's anyone that's really Naby curious. Like, it seems to be one or the other. But to watch him, as long as he can stay fit, I think that he's going to perform the role that they asked Genie to do, the unsexy stuff, just recycling, maintaining possession, knocking it off, maybe sideways oftentimes, just to keep it moving.
Yeah,
and that's not necessarily his game. So I think that was why that hug was reserved for him when he came off. And Klopp's smile touched both ears, almost wrapped around his head.
Yes, Robbie, Mustoe, and Tim Howard. What do you know? Because they were critiquing him mainly at halftime on our coverage yesterday.
I can't listen to either of them. I go get myself a cup of tea. I play with the dogs. I paint.
So I was watching the game out on the street at Rooney's yesterday with a crowd, so I missed all of that nonsense. And at halftime, I was feeling really good. Then I watched the replay this afternoon. It's like, wow, I couldn't believe we were that bad in the first half based on what these characters. And then I saw the hug, and it's like, okay, well, somebody obviously had a different perspective on how they played than you did, which I thought was awesome. One other person I'd be interested to talk about that I really I watched the game in the last hour, the last part of the game, and I love all of these people. They're all wonderful. But there was a Alisson, I am not letting a goal in today kind of feeling in that last 10 minutes, which I absolutely loved. It's like, this is my clean sheet and you're not going to mess it up. He made some terrific saves. He made some saves, some things were offside, but I thought he was absolutely awesome yesterday. That
last one that he saved going down to his left with his left paw, I thought it hit him in the chest. That hand is made out of concrete. It went like 30 yards back up the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw somebody comment online again. It was actually like an account that was, you know, how you can give your own reviews on some of these sites and you're a 9 and tell them why or whatever. And they said something like they gave Ali a 9, and they the last line of the commentary was, I I'm not a religious person, but I know Jesus plays for Liverpool.
What about that Cruyff turn too? All I can say is the moisture content went up in my house when I watched that happen. It was.
Yeah, he's just. He's incredible. He's just an incredible player.
Mhm.
I mean, after that goal last year, it's almost like you almost feel like we could throw him out there as an outfield player and he'd be great. I mean, he's such an incredible player. So yeah,
Champions League final.
You take that for granted, at this point, I think. But
Champions League final winner in Istanbul. I can see it coming now.
Yeah.
This is going to be a theme of mine until things go badly. So
did anyone see that cross that hit Matip in the face or the head?
Yeah,
got wobbly for a second.
It was like there were people saying,
back together.
Should he have come out of the gate? Because one of those chances came afterwards, and he was partially at fault for it. He was kind of like out of it for a few minutes, but
he kept getting punched and kicked by Barnes.
He got smashed in the side of the head with the cross.
Let's move on to the dodgy Sean Dyche tactics and mentality, where somehow in his world, too many soft fouls were given, and Dwight McNeil falling over very softly should have been a penalty. Any takes on? I really don't like that team. I don't, I really understand that people are like, oh, they don't have much money, but they're obnoxious. And Ashley Barnes is like leader of the crew when it comes to obnoxious.
Yeah, I guess I admire what Dyche is able to do with the talent and the money that they have, right? Like in terms of they because really they should be getting relegated almost every year, in my view. I mean, they don't half of their team are championship caliber players. I mean, they don't have very good players, but they play this agricultural style, and the thing that really annoys me about it is that they always seem to really get up for Liverpool for some reason. I don't know what that's about. And then they play Man City and they just roll over and lose 5-0. I don't know what that's about, but the match. I think overall, at least from what I've seen, the referees seem to be letting play go a little bit more. But in my view, they're letting it go a little bit too much in a lot of cases, and it's not super consistent. And Klopp mentioned it last week. They're putting the players' health at risk in a lot of the cases. I think there was one challenge, might have been last week. I'm not sure, but there was like a 2-footed slide tackle on the sideline. The guy, there wasn't even a foul called. We were talking earlier. There were a couple fouls on Jota with Jota and Barnes in this game.
Peters did it to what's his face when he came on. Peters was a 2-foot challenge on Harvey, and I was like,
that's what it was. Yeah, it was that one. Yeah, and it's like, since when is that not at least a yellow card? I mean, that's been outlawed forever. There was one, and I was, I know I mentioned it before we were on. I mentioned it to a couple people. I can't remember. It was right before we scored the second goal, I think. And we were in an attack, and I think it was a cross in by Salah, maybe. And Jota had run up. He was standing at the top of the box. I don't know what minute we scored the second goal, but if you go a couple minutes ahead, you'll see it. And I think it was Barnes just comes running full speed down the pitch and plows into the back of Jota. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, it looked like if you're watching NFL when a player blocks in the back on a punt. I mean, and he gets up and turns around like, where's the foul? And just nothing. There was no acknowledgement that anything happened. And there's no way that Dean would have missed that. I mean, he'd be running up right behind the play. So stuff like that is just going to get somebody injured. Yeah. I'm all for letting them play, but you got to draw the line somewhere. People can't be getting hurt. So, it was like a wrestling match out there at times yesterday. I mean, it was a little crazy, but
Sean, big concern is both Alexander-Arnold and Elliott looked like they hobbled off yesterday. And I know Klopp said there were no injuries, but I don't know. They did not look in great shape, thanks to and it's a wonder Jota came off the field intact after Goodmanson slammed into the ground and somehow didn't get a yellow card.
Well, that's the problem with look. Mike Dean will oftentimes let go stuff will go against us anyway, but the problem is at skyscrapers. When they realize that they can get to there, they'll see if they can get to there. And if he doesn't stop it there, it continues to grow and grow to the point where Ashley Barnes grabbed Matip and basically two-footed him and pulled him down at the same time.
Yeah.
And nothing was called. And then Barnes, speaking of Barnes, when he was giving it the big I am on that offside goal, just had to turn around and look at the flag as like that.
That was a moment.
Well, the thing that really did annoy me yesterday is that they were diving. It was almost like they were going out of their way to try to get fouls and get cards on us. And in the past, Dyche has complained about our team doing that.
But everybody else doing it, not just our team. It's like Burnley doesn't do this shit, right? Yeah.
That part of it did annoy me. But
Pope got pulled up for time wasting in the 6th minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how Dan Kennett put something out? You know how long the ball was in play?
Yeah.
Less than 50 minutes. Over half the match was the ball was out of play or not, like dead. There was a dead ball.
Yeah. I'd be interested, to is that the worst with crowds, or is that like the average when they had no? Because I had this thing about Luke Shaw and how much he held onto the ball when there were no crowds. I'm kind of wondering what the numbers would be for the no crowds, because I imagine Burnley sucked the life out of most games when there were no crowds. So anyway, just a question for anyone listening who wants to post and talk about that. But
yeah, they do a lot of that. But again, I mean, they must not do. I don't know. I mean, whenever it seems like when they play Man City and other top teams, they're just not as aggressive, and I guess they're probably not allowed to be as aggressive. I don't know.
We don't
seems like this always happens against us, where they come and they play extremely physical, and they're just allowed to do it, and they don't call fouls. So.
That's exactly it. So there's no protection from the refs, and we don't have. I know it's going to sound massively conspiracy theorist, but like in general, referees will tend to let stuff go against us more than they will other teams. And I think that Tompkins has put something out along those lines as well. And so there is data to suggest that the referees are a lot less hard on fouls against for us. But also we don't have any shithouses on our team. We don't have anyone that's going to follow someone around and say, all right, mate. Like Jota stuck up for himself when Barnes grabbed him by the throat. And of course, the commentators are like, oh, what's that all about? He's put his leg out. Well, you generally didn't intend to kick out if someone's trying to choke the life out of you, ball bag.
The closest things we have I think are Van Dijk and Fabinho. But I mean, they're not that bad. I mean, I think when he called, and I thought this was ridiculous too, when he called both Jota and Barnes over after that incident to like tell them both to calm down, as if Jota had been doing anything the whole match other than getting beat up. Van Dijk was standing right by him, just kind of staring down Barnes, like, try that one more time, and he has done some of that in the past too, but that's not really his role in the team. So
no, it felt completely wrong that Barnes didn't get a yellow card. Although I think the person that most was the opposite of the Dyche, like, oh, we don't fall over, it's all those other people. It was like Goodmanson, like he pretended to have been shot in the face in the first half. He then complained about Tsimikas falling over when he like barged him in the face, and then he slung Jota to the floor. I think he probably is poster child of the day, I think, for the Burnley way.
Speaking of Tsimikas, him somehow snaking his way out of the 14 or 15 thundering challenges that were flying in from every which way.
Yeah.
I think he really endeared himself to people, especially on the main stand, because you could see him. He was again. He's been a bit of a revelation. That ball was inch perfect, and I was just there to be hit. And like those are the types of near post runs that I'm like those diagonal near post runs that I've been aching for our guys to take. They generally tend to run in straight lines instead of cutting across. I used to love watching Sergio Aguero do that. He'd always steal a march on someone on the front post and just kind of flick it past a goalkeeper.
That was actually, and that move that Jota made there was, it was better than it looks at first sight too. And you watch it again, he sort of acts like he's going to run towards the middle of the goal, and then he kind of cuts and goes near post, and he probably threw the defender off just enough to get to that ball. But yeah, I thought Tsimikas was great. He hits a great corner too, but at the end of the day, Burnley got almost nothing against us until the very end of the game. 0.19 XG. I mean, they had almost no chances. So for anybody to act like it wasn't total domination, it's like the game wasn't close. I don't know what the commentary was about, acting like it was some kind of a close game. It really wasn't. We controlled it, and so it's good to see. It seems like we look a lot more like the team we were, 2018 to 2020.
So Robbie Mustoe, if you're listening, and we know Tim Howard, you're not. Hey, we're much better than you said we were. We're going to move on a little bit. I'm surprised you didn't mention the fact that even with the VAR changes, we're still managing to rule out Mo Salah goals. And we got lines on the field. I thought we weren't supposed to have lines on the field. Wasn't that the story?
I don't think they show them while they're doing it. I think that they'll use it afterwards to justify why the decision that was made. When at first sight, I looked at it, I did think he was offsides. Mm-hmm. Like it was marginal, but I did think he was offsides. That was my first inclination.
And I guess my concern is I thought we were eliminating marginal offsides. Anyway,
the Salah one,
yeah.
I think even. I don't know. And it depends on how you draw him on. But I thought he was maybe like, I don't know. It was more than a few inches he was off, basically, put it that way, in my view.
It's interesting.
It was just barely. And the thing is, he could have done, he could have made his run later.
Yeah.
So he just mistimed it a little bit. Yeah.
Burnley protested about a lot of stuff. They weren't protesting about that being offside. Just saying. Okay, let's move on. Well, let's do a quick rest of the league kind of conversation. Manchester United looked great today at Southampton. Well, they should have won, except Bruno was fouled by that brutal Southampton defender. Chelsea looked, better than Arsenal, which is not hard. I was saying to someone today, actually, if they painted a big white arrow down the kind of Chelsea's right and said, attack here, it could not have been plainer that the Arsenal were a bit weak on that side. So we can go down that path.
Did you ever see that video in Germany? The team, I think it was a lower division team where they were struggling to score and all the people in the away end were carrying arrows. So every time they were pointing towards the goal, depending on where the guy was going. I'm going to see if we can find that. That was hilarious.
That would fit.
I watched a little bit of the Arsenal-Chelsea match, and I shared this with you guys. Arsenal look terrible. I mean, they're so bad. And
you said in the past tense, they just look terrible.
They're just bad. I mean, and they just re-signed Granit Xhaka to a new contract. Like, why? I think he's been one of their biggest problems the last few years. They're signing Ben White to $50 million. I mean, Ben White he's an okay, like mid-tier kind of player, but he's not Arsenal caliber. He's just not a very good defender, and didn't play today. And then Aaron Ramsdale, apparently they're going to be signing, who was probably the worst goalkeeper in the league last year.
So two things: Ramsdale was on the bench today.
Wow!
Already,
you're on vacation. It's okay.
White, yeah. It seems interesting to me that Brighton decided we can ditch him. We can bring back that guy from Celtic. Come not suffer a beat. It does feel like they've been duped. 50 million for.
And then Tierney, I think, is usually one of their best players. He was not good today. I don't know. He recovering from injury. He gets injured a lot. I'm not sure if he's recovering from an injury, but I thought Rob Holding was horrible today. I mean, he's just on I think it was Chelsea's second goal. He was just in no man's land. And then he kind of left Mari, who got plowed over by Lukaku for the first goal, and Tierney to cover the entire box. And so ultimately Reece James was wide open on the far side. So it was just
big arrow.
It was a comedy of errors. Yeah, it was. I mean, you got Granit Xhaka, and I can't remember the other midfielder. He actually looked pretty good, but I wasn't familiar with him. Thomas Partey, I guess, is hurt again. He's not playing. They're just a mess. I mean, they're just a mess. So any Liverpool supporters that want to make themselves feel better at any point in time, just imagine that you could be Arsenal.
Because you think Arteta's going to get the welly?
I think Arteta is going to be the first manager sacked this year, because I just don't see how they get out of this. I mean, they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play Ramsdale and Ben White and Xhaka, and none of them are good. and that's the spine of your team. So I don't see how they get out of this. But
who's the replacement? Remember, like Spurs struggled to get. They interviewed like 5 people. They said thanks, but no thanks. You guys are shite. Who are they going to get? Who are they going to get to manage them?
I read some nonsensical article that said that they might get Conte, but I can't. I'm not a reliable source, but
we might still have a house in London.
I mean, and it would. But Conte usually isn't the type that comes in and does like a full rebuild either. So I don't know. He's a good manager. If they could get somebody like that in there, maybe they could fix it. But again, they just spent 80 million pounds on players that aren't very good. And they just re-signed Jota, who's not very good, in my opinion, to a big new contract. So what do you do with those guys? I mean, if they're going to be core parts of your team. You're on mute, Paul.
We could definitely go down a path of Arsenal fan TV, but if you look at the rest of the one thing that
Eckport's got landmines on it.
The one thing I struggle with is it's just the inconsistency in some of the refereeing, because they should have a penalty today, right? Arsenal didn't get a penalty. Spurs did get a penalty, which I'm not sure was a penalty. So,
according to Robbie Mustoe, that means that Dele Alli is back because he got a penalty and scored a penalty.
But here's the problem: like everyone somehow thinks that there's now going to be some sort of magical consistency from referees because they've widened lines, because they're going to let more stuff go. Let more stuff go. The referees aren't going to change. Like people can, Mike Dean can hide behind, as we were saying earlier, he can hide behind. Well, the new ruling is we let more stuff go. Let boys be boys. It's a big boys game. It's physical, and then there was no yellow cards given for something that were clearly yellow cardable offenses. So it's to think that this is somehow magically going to see some sort of consistency from referees. I think that they've, by and large, it seems to be that people are saying they have done better on balance. But they've still bottled a couple of calls.
Yeah, I think they've done. I think it's been better than it was. I mean, last year would have been hard to be worse than last year. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole idea of letting people play, it only goes so far until you start, putting players' health at risk. In terms of the other teams, I don't. I think going around, the only other team that looked good. I mean, I think City looked good yesterday, but they didn't look good last week. But I do think Chelsea's looked good. I guess I'm skeptical to see if they can do this for a full season, because last season, towards the end of the season, when they were on their Champions League run, they really kind of fell off form in the league.
That happens sometimes with people when their heads are turned with quote unquote larger competitions or bigger gains.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it's managed this year. I mean, they have looked really good though. I mean, personally, I still think it'll be a race between us and City, and I think Chelsea might, hang in for a while, but I could see them kind of tailing off at some point.
Lukaku scares me. I think that might be the missing piece that they need.
No, I agree. I mean, Lukaku definitely is exactly what they needed last year. And the first goal today is a perfect example. Like, he just plowed right through Marnie, just smashed the ball home. And that's what he does. I mean, he's just a battering ram. And it's good for the way they play, because they, at least it's interesting because my understanding is under Tuchel in the past, he's really been more attack minded, but since he's been at Chelsea, they've really played more defensively. They played kind of most people wouldn't say this, but in my view, it's like a back five. And then they play 2 defensive midfielders in front of it. And they allow almost no chances, but they also don't always create a lot, especially against good teams. So in the league last year, they had a number of draws, and then towards the end of the season, they had a couple of losses. But when you got a player like Lukaku, he can get you a lot of goals just through sheer force and hold up play and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there'll be a challenge. I'm just, they still have a few pieces in their team that I think are potential weak links in their defense. And, if Conte is not in the team, I think against better clubs, they're a little bit vulnerable in midfield too. But
here's a question for you guys. Based on that's only 2 games in, but who are your relegation fodder?
Definitely Norwich. For me, Norwich. I don't know. It's a good question. I could see Burnley going down, actually, even though I said that they've stayed up. They keep losing players over the last couple of years, and they're not replacing any. And so I would go with Norwich and Burnley, maybe Newcastle for the third. I don't know. The third's a little bit.
So who's in the bottom 3 now?
Newcastle, Arsenal, and Norwich.
I'll go with them.
I'm not calling Arsenal to get relegated. I think Arteta would be sacked before that could happen. But
so of the teams that have like overperformed over the last couple of years, Newcastle and Crystal Palace are amongst them, where they've got more points than they deserve. I think they could be an issue. I still think Brentford's a possibility. I think they're right now riding on a sense of, I think if they hit hard times, start to lose a few games, it's difficult when you've got no kind of muscle memory to build up. But well, Arsenal get to get relegated. You heard it here first. It sounds good. So we start. Are we done with the? Who do you think might get relegated, Daz? And then we'll get back to Chelsea next weekend.
On current form, I was actually going to go with Sean's personally because I just want Burnley just to go away.
Ashley Barnes. Yes.
I also could see. I could also see somebody hiring Dyche away from Burnley during the year this year too. And I think if that happens, then the bottom will just fall out. But we'll see.
Well, it's just because Burnley is. I didn't think it was possible for them to fall further down my estimation, but they pulled it off. So credit to them. It's like, look, if you're going to be skullduggerous, if I don't even know if that's a word. Maybe
it is a word. Yeah.
If you were going to engage in skullduggery and be and the dark arts, then just be like the Charlestown Chiefs. Just start fistfights all over the shop and be known for that. But don't half-ass it, like be hard, man, and then cry wolf when you get fouled. It's kind of like, I hate Roy Keane, but like he didn't shirk from anything. He was always hard. Like someone went over the ball on him. He's like, okay,
yeah,
I'll see you next time. I'm not going to roll around on the floor. And I realize that some people like the 5 listeners that we have will probably come in and say like, well, that's just part of the game.
Hey, we have 25. Come on.
Ooh, factors. All right. My mom must have joined. So I don't know. I really want them to disappear because their brand of football is people say, well, you need it, or it's an important part of a league to have a team like that. It's keeps it honest. I don't know what the rationalization for wanting them to stay in. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently they're running a match day experience at Turf Moor. I don't know if you guys saw that. 4 days, expenses paid for the experience of a lifetime at Turf Moor.
I saw that. Yeah.
I can't imagine a fate worse than death. And that was it right there.
So he did such a bad job of selling it, Sean Dyche says, because they had him in the commercial. The guy afterwards had to explain what the offer was. It was, yeah. I feel like we've done enough Burnley. Maybe we'll do a little bit of Chelsea and then move on and close the episode. Does that sound good?
I see a 1-1 draw and scene.
Okay, we're done with Chelsea then. Let's move on.
Yep.
I think we'll win a 2-1. I think we're playing really well right now, and I think we'll be able to control the game in the midfield, and I think our defense is a lot more solid now than it was. And But you're right. I mean, Lukaku kind of is the X factor. So yeah, I'm going with 2-1. In a pretty close match.
This will come back to bite me, but Lukaku's never done well against the top teams.
Why did you even say it? Why did you even say it?
So the reason is because he's a different player now than the one who was at Manchester United. I read that everywhere. It's like, okay, all right. If you're right, then I'm wrong, and he's going to score against us. But I remember how he was playing for everyone against us. Did he ever score against us, actually?
For Everton, I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, he had that one really good year for Everton, and then I think when he was at Inter, he kind of found that form again.
So if he scored against us, it can't have been the game they won, because they didn't win against us for years.
I'm not an expert. I think
you said, did he score? Yes, he scored against us. Has he beaten us?
No. Yeah.
He's I think he's inconsistent.
United, though?
I don't remember.
I'm sure that that super tanker of wine that you have over there is helping the memory.
Oh, I see it now. He scored. No, they've never beaten us.
At the bottom of that glass. Keep going.
So I would just say, like, Lukaku, I think the one thing with him is that he's been kind of inconsistent throughout his career. He's up and down. But he has had full seasons, like last year at Inter and then the 1 year at Everton where he put together a pretty impressive season. So hopefully he doesn't do that this year.
So let me go down a different path. Well, I think he's going to score a lot of goals. I just don't know he's going to score goals in games next weekend. My other thing is, do you think, how much do you think Tuchel is intimidated by Klopp? Because I think that's a big factor in next weekend.
Well, he beat us last season. So I think that maybe that shine has, if you're going to go down that road, I think that shine might have worn off a little bit.
So Daz, no crowds, like Reece Williams and Nat Phillips were in defense.
Yeah, that was in the middle of our really bad patch. I remember when we played that match, I really didn't have any hope that we would even get anything out of it.
Yeah,
we were just in such poor form at that point. That's why I'm interested to see how it goes tomorrow, or I mean next week. I think a lot of it will depend on the midfield battle. Like I think Conte and Fabinho will probably both be back, and that could be it. Kind of like who wins that battle, the midfield, because they tend to try to hit people on the counterattack a lot, especially when they play better teams, and so it'll depend on kind of how we handle that and if we can break them down.
So Daz, you don't think we're going to beat them?
I think it'll be Tuchel will try and corral it into exactly what Sean was intimating, just kind of a heavyweight jab fest where it's. I don't think anyone's going to really. Well, I think don't get me wrong, we'll go for it because it's just in Klopp's DNA. But I think that Tuchel will try to manage it as much as possible and turn it into that kind of a turgid, just two banks of four, a bank of four and a bank of five, and then again, Sean's right, probably try and nick something on the counter or something from a set piece. It depends. It depends if my man Jota shows up and does what he's doing and just continues to do what he's doing and just popping up in the right place at the right time and nicks one or two. I think I see like a kind of a heavyweight 1-1.
Okay.
I'll shut this one out. I think Mane could. I'd keep an eye on Mane next week up against Reece James. I think it could be one of those games where he's trying to take, the right back on one-on-one, kind of, and can help create some things. And I also wouldn't play down the fact that we do have Van Dijk and Matip back there, which makes our threat on set pieces. Makes us a lot better on set pieces defending, and it makes our threat a lot better. That could be huge in that match because. When you think about it, who on that Chelsea side is going to win a header over those two?
Lukaku.
Well, right, maybe Lukaku, but none of their defenders. I wouldn't take Rudiger or Christensen over those two. So that could be another big part in it. But yeah, it'll be a cagey one, I think. But
yeah, I am really optimistic about this, and I actually think if we are able to beat them, that's going to make it really hard for all those other teams around us to. So I love your pragmatism, Daz, but I hope you're wrong.
Piss off.
So why don't we wrap it up? There's so much has gone on. We could talk about Andrew Devine. We could talk about Jota and Shaqiri. We could talk about Terry McDermott. Lots of things happened this last week in and around the Reds. And whatever you want to touch on. Last thing before we go, Sean.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole here, but I do want to recognize that, Shaqiri apparently is off to Lyon. It's been a couple weeks in the making. I think we got a couple million out of him that we weren't going to get originally. Paul Joyce was reported anyway, and it
was on the BBC site today, so I think it's done. It's
done deal, yeah.
So, but Shaqiri he's an interesting player. I mean, I think a lot of people were really excited about him when we signed him. We thought we got a really good deal, and he never, I think, quite became or filled the role that I think a lot of people thought he would. Go ahead, Paul.
There were moments, though, right?
Oh no, that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
There were moments like the Barcelona match. There were a lot of moments, and the biggest thing with him is that, especially over time, it seemed like he's just a pro's pro. Like, he didn't get the game time that he wanted, but he never complained. I'm sure that at times he was frustrated he wasn't playing or didn't have the role or this, that, and the other. You never heard one negative thing about him, and he seems extremely respected, in the squad. People always talk about how impressive he is in training and all that, free kick taking and striking the ball, and so and at the end of the day, he's got a couple championships to hang on his hat that he was key part of. So I wish him all the best. I think he will. I think Lyon is the type of club that he could do really well in, because he tends to do a lot better, in my view, as being like the focal point of a team. And he was never really going to be that for us. But I think he could be at Lyon. So
one thing I do need to add, I was at Anfield when we beat United 3-1. I think it was the end of 2017, 2018.
I remember that one, yeah.
With the brace.
Yeah. It was the deflected one, the one that deflected in, right? From the top of the box. You don't remember.
He took it right. Did he take it off Trent's boot too? Like, he was someone, he just nicked it right off in front of them.
Yeah, there was, I think I remember that match, and I'm pretty sure he smashed one. It was like the top right side of the box, and it deflected off somebody, went in. Yeah, that was a big one.
It went.
And there was a kick against Man U again in the Big House in Michigan.
Oh, with the wet kick. Yeah.
He's a great free kick taker. That's one thing. Like, he took some of them for us, but so I wish him all the best.
He had his moments. He definitely had his moments. Yeah.
Yep.
He's not someone who's going to leave, and we're going to be thinking, that Coutinho bastard. We're going to. Jack, he was one of us, right?
Yep.
So, Daz, last thoughts of the for today.
I don't really know where to go. I guess it's nice that Andrew Devine was recognized, and so rest in peace. I thought what we did for him was very nice, and it was recognized by his family members too. So it was a really nice gesture. I think that's one thing that we do well as a club is get the right tone for gestures like that. It doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't feel disingenuous. It feels, am I allowed to use those words? It's fairly late anyway, but I think that.
Oh, you mean this episode's run long? You probably
No. I'm saying like the $5 words. But in a more serious note, yes, I think that we as a club oftentimes strike the right tone with stuff like that, and I think it was a very, very nice gesture.
Yeah.
And also, I saw that Manchester City couldn't fill the stadium for their first home game.
That is pathetic. Yeah.
I knew that'd get you.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Guardiola and his complaining. It's like, it's not Barcelona or Bayern at Man City. It just isn't. It never will be. So
could be anywhere. It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I could go on about Manchester City and their failings, but did like the Justice for the 97 chant yesterday. I really, yeah. Sometimes Liverpool do things in a way that belies the reputation for doing things badly.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, final thing for me. I don't know if you guys remember the first player to score a goal in a European Cup / Champions League final for Liverpool was one Terry McDermott, who was from he was born in Kirby, I think, which is like in the suburbs of Liverpool. He scored some great goals for Liverpool. Just announced that he's been diagnosed with dementia.
He's had Parkinson's since he was 35, though, hasn't he? He's just been managing.
Is that it? Was it him? Because so this I don't know, because
I think that's what I read.
You're the guy in the midfield. That midfield was Ray Kennedy, and he.
I think that's who I'm thinking of.
He had Parkinson's. Yeah. So that midfield, by the way, was Terry McDermott, Jimmy Case, Graham Souness, and Ray Kennedy. Ray Kennedy had Parkinson's, and Graham Souness is still on Sky, disliking Paul Pogba for very odd reasons.
Out loud.
Jimmy Case was always a cool guy. Don't know what he's doing today, but anyway, Terry McDermott.
We had a pint with Jimmy Case. Yeah, when we were over there, we did the usual Wool tourist thing, and we went to do a stadium tour. And he was our celebrity chef, so to speak, and he took us around. He's a great storyteller, and you can tell they have stewards that go with them as well. And there was a lady steward, and she was gushing over him. And she was singing his chant to him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's how it went."
So this, I can't remember which tie this was in, but I remember watching it. I was at Anfield in the 70s, because that's how old I am. And there was a game, European, it was a semi-final. They were playing some German team, I think. I remember like he went for a 50-50 ball with one of the defenders. And the defender looked up and saw it was him and stepped away.
Yep.
Jimmy Case was not someone you probably wanted to tangle with. So.
Can you imagine the midfield with him and Souness? Because Souness was hard with nails too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, him with Souness, that must have been tough. Yeah.
So that was the story that he told when we were on the tours. I was like, "So who's the hardest man you've played with and against?" And he said, like, it was the same person. It was Graham Souness.
Oh, wow.
Because he said that, I forget who he was playing for beforehand, but he said, so Souness was marking him tight, and he's like, I just gave him a little elbow to this right on the bridge of the nose, and he knew what I was doing. And I was just trying to get his back up, and he said, so he grabbed him and threw him to the ground, and it was over him, like he was gonna give him one in the grill, and he's like, "Go ahead, mate, you'll be off." And
I haven't seen him play, a lot, obviously, but I've heard a lot of Liverpool supporters talk about, just how great Graham Souness was, and
the player,
a critical part of those teams he was, and so that's why with this Pogba Souness debate, it's almost like these Michael Jordan LeBron debates, where it's like, do you know how good Graham Souness was? I know Pogba's a good player, but he hasn't done half of what Souness did, at least on the club level. You could argue international, but.
So I would like to end the episode by saying, if you haven't seen Terry McDermott's first goal against Borussia Mönchengladbach in Rome in 1977, that's well worth a look. And that's what sets us on our way in terms of being European power. Let's end it there. Daz, thank you for joining us. Sean, I'm supposed to read something off now about like favorite us or like us or whatever it is, if you're watching and listening. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for watching, Mom.